Hi everyone, this is Tammy with Life Began in a Garden. In today's video, we are going to do part 2, which is creating and adding in the pages to the Gardener's Journal. This is an example of the pages that I'm using in my Gardener's Journal, but you can use whatever pages that you would like depending on the size and the style of your journal. So I will show you what I did to my pages and how I inserted them into my book. So on this one, I am going to be showing you how I added the title to this journal. And the first thing that I did to it was to stencil the words Gardener's Journal on the front of the journal. I already have the word Gardeners on there, and you can't see it because it's under that paper, but now I'm adding the word journal to it. So I write out the word journal and count the number of letters that are in it, and then find the center letter, and that's how I center it on my book. So the center letter is the R, so I'm going to do the R first and then add the others in on both sides. And as you can see there, I'm lining up the R with what is the center of the journal, and I'm just going to stencil it on there. I'm using StazOn ink to do that. And that stencil is pretty dirty, so after I get that letter R on there, I realize that I really need to clean that stencil because it makes it hard to see through it, and I need to be able to see through it to make sure I'm lining the letters up correctly and that I'm spacing them correctly. Another option here would be just to, on your computer, type it out and then make that be a label that you just add on to the front of it. I chose not to do that because I want the magazine, the Gardener's magazine, the images from it anyway, to show through, and this just be an overlay on top of it. So many of the things that I do today to show you how to put yours together, I don't go through the whole step on video. I just show you how I do it and then move on to the next thing, because once you see the process, you don't need to actually watch the whole thing and it would make the video too long. So here I am cleaning the stencil, and the alcohol wipes do a great job of removing the StazOn ink, and that's what I was trying to do here, was to get that off of there so that I could see through it better. As soon as I'm finished with that, we will move on to doing the pages and showing you how that I insert the pages into the journal. A lot of the pages I actually sewed around them, and a lot of that was just by preference. I like, as I've said before, I like the zigzag stitch. So that belly band there is what we're doing next, and this is showing you the material that I used. That's just coffee stained cotton fabric, and that's the size that I made it be, but yours would be whatever size that you need for your journal. And that picture of a cucumber came out of the Gardener Seed catalog that I've been using in this book, and I'm using Mod Podge to attach it to the fabric. And I just did that zigzag stitch on it, and I did a kind of a sloppy zigzag stitch. I wasn't trying intentionally to get straight lines because I didn't really want them straight on that one. So I'm applying the Mod Podge to the back of that piece of paper, and I'm trying to get as much Mod Podge on there as I can, as much as it will hold, because it's going to be adhering to fabric, which is a little harder than adhering to another piece of paper. So you just put the amount on there that you want, and then place it onto the fabric in this case, but whatever you're adding it onto. And then once I get it rubbed down there good, then I also put Mod Podge over the top of it. And I wasn't sure that this was going to hold up like I needed it to, but it attached beautifully onto the fabric, and it doesn't show any signs of trying to pull apart from it. Even though it is a belly band and I'm having to mess with it a lot to put things in and out, it still is holding up very well. So you could, even on top of the fabric, you could do this with a napkin if you wanted to, and just do an overlay of a decorative napkin even on the whole belly band. As long as this doesn't get washed, and it won't, then that holds up well. So on this one, what I'm doing is that band at the bottom of the page, and again that will be sewn. And I'm using, again, a page from the Gardener's Seed Catalog, and they had one section in there that had color in it. And this is about herbs, so this page. So I'm just cutting some strips, and they're probably about 2 inches wide, and as long as I need it to be to go across the whole bottom of the page. And then you just treat this piece of paper like it's fabric, and if you've ever made binding, then this is how you would do the binding. So you fold it in half and then unfold it, and then each of those sides you fold in half again, which is how that binding is. If you've ever sewn binding onto a quilt or a piece of fabric, that's how it is. The raw edges are turned in on both sides, and then it's folded back again in the center. So the pages that I'm doing this on are the ones that are for herbs and flowers, and that's why I chose the colored section on this. I'm going to have 3 signatures, which is groups of paper that will be added in at one time. So I'm going to have 3 of them in the book or the journal, and this whole section will be about herbs and flowers. So I just add it onto the bottom of the page like that. All you got to do is just slide it on, and then I take it to my sewing machine and do a zigzag stitch just along that strip. And that's the only part of these sections that I'm sewing. But I'm trying to get that zigzag stitch through the whole Gardener's Journal, just so that all the signatures have it on there somewhere. So make sure that you do back stitch on this at the beginning and at the end, so that it doesn't try to come unraveled. But it also makes it, if you put a band like this, it makes it a little easier to turn the pages because they don't try to stick together. And I think it just adds a little detail to it and makes that bottom edge a little more durable. I'm hoping that this journal will last me hopefully 5 years, maybe more than that, but 5 years is what I'm hoping for anyway. So I do want it to have some durability to it and be something that will hold up to the uses that I do with it. This one is a folder, you know, the folders that have the metal prongs in them that you can add paper into, and it has a pocket on the bottom of it. That's what I used for this one, and I just glued the magazine page onto it. And I'm going to make a pocket out of this one, and in that pocket I will be able to put the tags that come with plants that you buy. Like lots of times when it's an herb, you buy it already started, and it comes with a tag, and that tag has information on it that is useful to you for how to care for that particular plant. So I like to save those tags, and this is where I will put them at. I do end up later going back and adding another pocket onto that, and in that pocket I will be putting the receipts of any plants or seeds that I buy, or even if I'm buying compost, if I run out of my own and I buy some, then I would put the receipt for that in there. So all I'm doing here is zigzagging around the edges, and I'm not going to take you through the whole thing. This is actually the finished part now. I just want you to see how I do it. And it's not really important to make sure that your stitches are absolutely perfect. They don't have to be. Just however you feel comfortable with is fine. So when I start adding the pages next, then those pages are the pages that I'm going to be using to record my seed starting. And like when I start planting or sowing the seeds for indoors, there's a lot of recording that has to be done with that, just to remind myself of when I've done certain things. And so these pages will be that. This one is the cover off of 2 books. They're actually Reader's Digest books, and they're old, but I wanted to use them as pages also, so I have put them right sides together and find the center where it will fold to make the 2 separate pages. And I start there with the zigzag stitch, and I don't do any gluing on this at all. All I'm doing is just gluing those 2 covers together. I'm sorry, not gluing, but sewing those 2 covers together. And once it's done, it will make 2 pages that will go into the signature. So when you're working with old books, just keep in mind that a lot of them do have this cover on it, and it was there to protect the book. But if that book is no longer going to remain the book that it was, and you're going to use that book in making a journal, then that cover is very useful. And it has a lot of durability to it when it's sewn together like this. I also taped the very center where it's going to be folded so that it would hold up to having the holes put in it to attach it to the book. Okay, so these pages are pages from a teacher's grade book. I like the color of them. I like that they have lines, and that's why they're being added into the book. And I coffee stained them first, so that's why they look a little discolored. If you've ever seen a teacher's grade book, then you know that those pages don't look quite this dingy. But if this look is what you're wanting, then just go ahead and coffee stain or tea stain them first, and then let that dry, and then use it. So up at the very top of the page is where I am gluing 2 pages together. So each of those pages will make a page in the journal once it's folded there where I'm gluing at. But in this case with these, I know that I'm going to be writing on these a lot, and I don't want the ink to bleed through to the back side because I want to use the back side also. So I am doubling the pages that go in here. And what I mean is that instead of using 2 pages to make 2 pages in the journal, I'm using 4 pages. So I make them the same size and glue together the tops of them like I'm showing here. And then I put those 2 together. So the one I just did and this one will be put together so that once I have sewn around it, it will be one page, which when folded then makes 2 pages. And that way when I'm journaling on it, because each of those lines I'll be journaling about the seeds, and these pages especially need to last for 5 years if this journal is going to last for 5 years. So sewing around them gives the reinforcement, and doubling up the pages gives the ability to write on them without worrying about it bleeding to the back side of the page. And on these pages, just like any of the pages that I add into here, this is just one way of doing it. So if you don't really care for this way and you want to do your pages differently, then you absolutely could. And you do not have to do the sewing. Just make sure that you're holding glue that you're using glue that holds up well. And like I said before, you don't have to do the coffee staining. This journal, because I used the seed catalog that I used, it looks very old. And so I wanted this whole journal to have that same look. But if you want yours to look new, then I would not do this coffee staining part, and you could take any new pages and turn them into a journal if they fit in your journal. And this is a big journal that I'm making, and again, your size can be anything you want it to be. And that's the good thing about the journals and about making a gardener's journal, is that you can add anything in that you want to add in. Anything that you feel like you would be needing space for to record. So it can be very simple, or it can be very elaborate. And it can be big, like this one is, or it can be smaller. The advantage to it being bigger is that you have more space to do your journaling, and you can add more journaling areas into it. But then the disadvantage of it is that you're limited on the pages that you can use in it because they need to be big enough. And you're also limited on where you store it at, I guess, because you need a place big enough to hold the book. And when you take it out into the garden with you, then it makes it a little bulkier, I guess, to hold and work with in the garden. But again, that's how I wanted this one to be, because I need that extra space in there. And I'm trying to make it something that I really enjoy looking at so that I will do my journaling in it the way I want to do it. I will be motivated, I guess is what I'm saying, to get the book out and do the journaling. So here I'm using a thread that's wax coated, and it's very strong. I don't know that you can break this with your hands just by pulling on it, but it's also very thin, and that's what I wanted here because I don't want the thread to show. I need that to add the signatures into the journal, to add the signature pages, but I don't want it to be a feature necessarily in there, so I'm using something that will blend in as good as possible, and the sole purpose for it is durability and that it holds the pages into the journal. So for this, I marked on the page there where I need to insert the needle at, and that's the very center of the page. And then you push the needle through all of the pages until you get to what the center is of that group of pages. And then you pull it through. And on this, it's actually 2 threads that are being pulled through, and I showed you in the first video how to add those threads into your journal cover. And so you're actually adding 2 threads in for each signature of pages. And so because of the way that this thread is put in there, it makes 2 strings in the center. One string gets tied on to the string that is on the other end, and the other one on the top end. I don't know if any of that made sense or not, but if you're watching me, then hopefully you can see what I'm doing there and how I'm adding them. And there are many different ways to add your pages, and this step would have been easier if I had been okay with having the string on the outside of the book binding. But I'm trying to hide it as much as possible, so when the book is closed or the journal is closed and you look at the spine of it, you're not going to see those threads because they're on the inside part. So on this section, I just pull those through and find the center string that goes with the one I'm holding in my left hand, and just tie those together and tie them as tightly as you can, and do at least a double knot. I think that on this one I actually knotted it 3 times, but 2 times is probably enough. And once I got it knotted together, then I leave about 1 inch of the string and I cut the rest of it off so that it's not in the way. And so you're doing this process on both sides of the pages, and that will hold that group of pages to the book. And as strong as this thread is that I'm using, I don't think those are going to ever come apart as far as the string breaking. So on this part, I stand the book up on its side so that I can get to the last part of it. And remember that I've got the other 2 strings already pulled through and sewn in, so I'm not so worried about those strings coming loose because it's already tied. So you add your final side in and then tie that together. Okay, so that part's done, and now I'm just going to show you the pages through the book and how they're all in there. So that gets all 3 signatures into the journal. And in my next video, which is part 3, I will show you how I finish up this book, this journal. I'll show you the things that I add into it, individual things that can be removed or put back in. And I will also show you what I did to some of the pages to decorate them and what all I put in it and why I put it in there. So I hope that you will consider making a journal for gardening in whatever style that you would like to make it in, and that you use it in your journal. That's showing where the pages, the different signatures were added at. So you can see the binding part of the book in between each signature just a little bit. I have a lot of different pages in here, a lot of different sections that I'm going to divide it up into. And then on the very back, that's showing the back cover of it, which is another add-in that I will show you on the next video. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will consider making your own gardener's journal. May God bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.